Hotep family, as you can see, we're having some technical difficulties. So we're going to try to get through this as best as we possibly can. But again, I was citing the book Sacred Space, Sacred Sound, The Acoustic Mysteries of Holy Places. And the book in itself, when it talks about holy places, it really is not just talking about technology and the building of buildings, but the way in which our ancestors were able to take the human form and human spirituality and apply it as it relates to the technology of the buildings. And such is an example of what we call the Grand Lodge of Luxor, or the Ipet et Waset, the holy place. And so my notes tell me that some of the things that Ms. Hale is talking about is that within each one of us is a sacred architecture and music that many ignore, which is your singing voice. And I know that we sometimes say that I can't sing, but that's not true. Each and every human being can sing. You are in tune. The question is, have you found where you vibrate? That's what a great singer, the greatest singers, are those individuals who have found their tone. They have found their tempo. They have found their vibration, their frequency. And they can ride that like a surfer rides a wave into the beach. The same is true for us. Chances are we each can sing. It's just you got to find your tone. The voice contains our deepest feelings and our spiritual longings, our hopes and fears and personal truths. Singing is the most personalized form of musical expression. It involves the diaphragm, the chest, the heart, lungs, throat, the tongue, the face. The exposed facial frontal part of our bodies, where our deepest emotions are stored. When we sing, we become a resonator, an instrument, a sacred instrument vibrating with the beauty of tone. We feel song. You know, there's a song, I Feel a Song in My Heart. I think it was Gladys Knight and the Pips that sang, I Feel a Song in My Heart. We feel song vibrate through our entire system, linking body, mind, emotional, our souls, and our spirit. The voice is a holy instrument. This is why the word becomes so important. This is why it's so important that as we listen to the music that we're experiencing today, we have to understand that although what's coming out of your mouth may not be holy, you are using a holy instrument in allowing it to come out. So it's like anything that you defame or you denigrate. That itself may be a very spiritual, sacred, important thing. But if you misuse it, it's the difference between a tool and a weapon. Every weapon is a tool, and every tool is a weapon. It's according to how you use it. Through the malleability of the physical architecture through which the voice sounds, I'm talking about your mouth, coming from that area that we just spoke about, the diaphragm, the lung, the throat, through which the voice sounds, resonant chambers are created that resemble caves, cathedral naves, and arches. In other words, if you open your mouth wide and look inside, that's actually what the front, when you walk into a cathedral, in many ways, that's what the cathedral looks like. When our ancestors built these temples, and subsequently all the cathedrals and churches around the world, the mosques and the synagogues that were built, they weren't just built haphazardly. They were built inside of your head, your nasal cavity. It's shaped like that. When you go to the Holy of Holies in Luxor, or the temple of Isut, Ipet et Waset, you actually get to a point where this nasal cavity is called the Shittite. And the Shittite is the same, it has two meanings. It means both sacred and hidden. S-H-T-Y-T. Again, I've got a curriculum on this. This is the importance of the curriculum that I'm talking about, that we have to not just teach our children, but we have to teach the community to understand that when all of the holy books talks about a temple, they weren't talking about the physical temple. The physical temple that we're dealing with today is because human beings want you to go in there and give them your money. So I'm not going to put that down. I mean, if that's your game, if that's your hustle, then, you know, that's what you do. But the original temple is your body. And the original Holy of Holies was in your limbic system in your brain, and it was also known as your pineal gland, pituitary gland, and your optic thalami. The three glands in your limbic system, in your third ventricle, are responsible for your spiritual growth, pineal gland, your physical growth, your pituitary gland, and your emotional growth, or the optic thalami. And so here in the Shittite, these are connected to what we call the sympathetic and vagus nerves. So what I'm trying to say, family, is that this is a science. Spirituality is a science. It's not about a belief. It's not about a faith. It's about a science. It's not something that you are superstitious of. It's not something that you have a religion of. It's something that you scientifically know. It's something that you and our ancestors knew, that you are the creator having a human experience, and that everything that we do on the planet is meant to create the physicalness of that spiritual essence. And so science became seen spirituality, and spirituality is unseen science. It was very clear to our ancestors what was going on. And for the most part, every time you see anybody in Africa trying to dupe the people, trying to bamboozle the people would rise up against that because they understood the truth of the science of spirituality. There's examples of it throughout African history, throughout Asian history. There's examples. And of course, when I'm speaking of Asia, I'm speaking about the origins of Asia, which is Africa. So, when resonated through the repeated stimulation of the nasal cavity, through chanting particular letters such as the M and the N, and that is why the N follows the M in the alphabet. Another piece that we're dealing with, that we have to really get to, is to understand that the letters that form the consonants and vowels are not just haphazardly chosen. It's very important that we have these sounds, and that our ancestors developed an alpha beta, or that's what the Greeks call it, the alpha beta, because they was tripping over the A and the B. So it was called the alpha beta, which comes to us as the alphabet. But the idea is that it all comes from sounds, the important concept of sounds that when brought through your mouth, through this holy instrument, through your tongue and through your heart and your lungs, all of this vibrating, your chakras in motion that moves through all of your glands and your organs, it creates a relationship between the person speaking and nature. So, such as a letter Om, which we've talked about, creates altered states of consciousness behind the nose in melanin. And this is deposited close to the pineal and the pituitary glands of the spongy bone in the center of the head. The letter M is a primordial sound. It's not the letter M, it's the sound from which other sounds are generated. In creation myths throughout the world, song or sounds bring life. Humming is one of our first sounds. It is the sound of nourishment and of bonding with the mother. Now, what you'll notice is that when something tastes good, we say, When we get a good idea, we say, When we're agreeing with somebody, we say, So that has a lot to do with concepts. And of course, humming is a universal sound, and it's one of the first sounds that we make as infants when we're breastfeeding with our mothers. M is the only letter in the English language that is internal. M is a nourishing sound made with the lips closed, which keeps tones circulating inside your mouth and inside the body cavity. Mater, mut, ma, mma, madre, mama. You have to close your mouth completely to make that sound. There's no other letter that you make that. That's why M is a universal sound in all languages. When you keep this tone circulating inside your mouth and in your body cavity, You feed the brain, and quietly you begin to quiet your nervous system. So, for instance, you place your hand on the top of your head. When you hum, you'll feel a vibration. Now, you know what this chakra is. This is the seventh and final chakra, which now releases the spirit. The concept of the chakra releases that final spirit when you have elevated through all of your seven chakras from your lowest to your highest. And so you can feel that, but at the same time, you can feel a tickling somewhere in that nasal cavity that we're talking about. And the reason why that's sacred is because that is where your all of your five senses, six senses if you consider thinking a sense, what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you smell, what you touch, and what you think. They then transform those six physical senses into six spiritual senses that bring you down to levels of altered states of consciousness, which some people call nirvana. Our ancestors called it the nun. When you hum, you help to clean your brain by bringing the skull into vibration, which helps waste particles move through the blood and brain barriers, move it through the body to make you a healthy individual. Humming while changing the position of the tongue inside your mouth generates harmonics, which many sound healers believe to be necessary for healing. It's important to know that, you know, when you're dealing with this nasal sound, if you move your tongue inside of your mouth as you're making this sound, you then are literally, it's like washing your hands completely, as opposed to just washing it like this, right? There's one way, but when you go like this and you put all sorts of things, well, actually, when you hum and you move your tongue around your mouth, you're doing the same exact thing, but you're doing it from a spiritual perspective, and you're allowing yourself to understand certain concepts, and you're beginning to understand that you're dealing with much more important concepts as it relates to music. And that's why I chose this subject to talk about, because we all know about music in a sense. We listen to it, we know it, we sing it, we dance to it, and all the rest. But what I'm trying to do is to bring a spiritual Ma'atian ethic, the idea of harmony and balance and justice to this process. And the idea that music, it heals the physical body. It can heal the spirit. You know, it can heal your mind. You know, and you know what I'm talking about. When you're having a problem and you have a favorite song that you want to listen to, and you listen to the song and it can calm you. You know, the idea that music can cure the savage beast. Well, they were talking about that negative entity in us. You know, it can heal us. The same way it can change our thought process. You know, we could be feeling real upset, and then our favorite song comes on the radio, and automatically we can go into another way of thinking, because that music can take our mind into a place of pleasure. That's actually what I attempted to do with the oils that I created, the Happy and Kush. I tend to want to create an atmosphere of Kush, a land, a plush land, a beautiful land, a land that you enjoy life, a place where you have that you are clothed, you are basked, you are wrapped in happiness, that you never worry about shelter, that is your shelter. Kush is your shelter. Your foods, you are well fed mentally, spiritually, and physically. That's what I was trying to get to with the oil, to create a concept that if you should wear happy and if you should be unhappy, that you might just take a whiff of happy and it can take you where you need to go. Just like that friend that you call, who is always telling you things that can always make you feel better about yourself. Well, you can have a smell that does the same thing. But if you condition your mind to make that, just like you conditioned your mind that that person can make you happy, can take you out to doldrums, just like that song that you might play that can take you out of those doldrums, those areas of sadness, of upset, of imbalance. Well, you can have a smell like that too. And that is why it's happy in Kush. In fact, that's why our ancestors called this river Happy, because it made them happy. And being Kush They were Kush. They were gold in brown. And so that as we move through this process, we're dealing with the mind. We're dealing with the way in which the mind can shape the very essence of the health of the body. And when the body is healthy and the mind is at peace, the spirit relishes all things that exist. And so it becomes important that as we understand music, the magical experiences that we have with music, understanding the earliest sound of M, when we understand that vowels form sacred geometry, because remember I told you that all these subjects are related. So music is related to geometry, is related to arithmetic. Music is deeply steeped in number. Musicians and music live in what we do, not just, all of the different, like the pentatonic scales, and African people got all the scales. And basically what you're dealing with is the idea that although you started with do and you ended with do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, the second do was at a higher octave. And so music is that thing that we deal with, that although we start at an area and we end in that area, we did not go straight. We went in a circle, so that as we ascend through the scales, we're constantly moving to a higher level. That the spirit that I was today is going to be a better spirit tomorrow. That the spirit that I am today is a better spirit than I was yesterday. So every day is that musical scale of going through do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But the do at night is not the do during the day. The do that goes into the underworld, that resurrects itself the next day, is a higher do, but it's the same do. Just like Asar is still Heru, but Heru at a higher level. Asar made it his business to make Heru better than him, just as we are to make our children better than us, and they are to make our grandchildren better than they, and on down the road. So this is how civilization is supposed to be built. But according to the Greeks and the Romans, they dealing with something known as the Cronus complex, which says that the present generation in power is going to be better than their parents' generation, but they're going to make sure that their children's generation don't do better than them. So when you hear people talk about this is a time where they're looking at the fact that their children will not be better than them, that their children will not have it better than them, that's their plan. But as African people, we have to bring the world back into balance and make sure that we don't let that happen again. And so it's important that the entire human language is born into us. Every possible musical combination exists in our mouth, our jaw, our palate, and our tongue. What we hear becomes what we speak, as the same neural pathways are used over and over again. In fact, the very word language is derived from the Latin word lingua, which means tongue. Because we practice and select the sounds of our mother tongue, that's why language is so important, eventually we lose our ability to make vocal sounds from other languages easier. And that was a very serious challenge. And cymatics, C-Y-M-A-T-I-C-S, has also shown that sound is spherical and that each vowel and tone has its own inherent sacred geometry. When we sing, we shape the air. Now here we are into astronomy, because our voices that are presented forward in arithmetic, music, everything is dealt on a base 4, because you're dealing with half note, quarter note, whole note, eighth note, and all of these are basically in the base 4 language. We have a base 10, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1 set, 0 left over. 11 is 1 set, 1 left over. In music, you're in a base 4 system where you have 0, 1, 2, 3, then you have 1 set, 0 left over. That's what we call the number 4. Number 5 is 1 set, 1 left over. 6 is 1 set, 2 left over. So we're dealing with astronomy now. And though we can't see this with our naked eye, the sonic energy we create through our voices infuses the air with our animated breath and is sent out into the world. Sound matters. We are the ultimate instrument. As we explore the sacred spaces within us, which is what involution is, searching for the spirit, we open up our internal sound pathways. We can harmonize with spirit and the world around us as one. We live in a time when we are out of tune with nature, and we have problems meeting our biological needs. Our nervous system, and indeed the nervous system of the planet, if not the cosmos, is overstimulated artificial sounds that create stress. And so what we're looking at is the ability to understand that while the computer and technology is wonderful and it is part of the future, it is not the future. And there is nothing more powerful than the human spirit. And so it becomes important for us to begin to understand the role of music as it relates to one of the subjects that we need to study. Every musician is a mathematician, but every mathematician does not realize that they are musicians. And so, because when they do math, they're doing music, and when you sing music, you are doing math. So it's one of the same. This is one of the cornerstones to the hip-hop culture, which is when they talk about beats. You see, and I sometimes wonder if our young people understand what they mean when they talk about beats, because beats is music. And then they use their voice, they use their rap to meet the beats. In fact, their voices, their words become the beats. So they're lit. Now, I'm not talking about what they're saying. That's a whole nother thing. I'm talking about the quality of what they're attempting to do as it relates to the African tradition of the Jele or the griot, who was in fact the original rapper of the planet that goes back thousands of years, long before concepts of hip hop. Okay? Even when you look at the word hip hop, when I was growing up, what did you used to say? Yo, that's hip. Which meant what? That was cool. That was dope. That was real. That was nice. I like that. That's hip. And what was a hop? A hop was a dance. I'm going to the hop. And that was the idea. The hip and the hop was meant to combine the word with the action, which one and the same was the creator having a human experience. And that's what hip hop is. And when you watch the artists on stage, and again, I say, don't listen to what they're saying. Think in terms of beats. Think in terms of taking words and sounds and blending them together to become the human instrument that you are. This is what we need to talk to our young people about. I ain't got no problem with them. I got a lot of respect for them. I have a lot of respect. That's the message. So for those of you, check out Wu-Tang. Check out 17, cut number 17 called Message. And listen to the message that was given to the young people about the work that they're doing. I ain't got nothing against that. I respect you for that. You're doing the best you can with everything that you have. The question is, one day you will be accountable for this. And nature has no mercy. You will be judged by what came out your mouth. Because once the word come out, you can't pull that bad boy back. That's it. So you will be held accountable for your words. And so it becomes important that we understand this. And our next program is going to be dealing with concepts of astronomy. And I'm going to tie this quadrivium up, or these 4 subjects together as it relates to the quadrivium, or the subject of 4. We started with arithmetic. We went to geometry. Today was music. Our next class is going to be on astronomy. And I just want to, first I want to thank you all for your response over these weeks to the website www.kabakamene.com, KABAKAMENE.com. I really appreciate your support. And see what I want to do, family, is I want to compete. I want our culture to compete with everything that's out there. You can't compete if you're poor. You can't compete if you're always asking for things. You have to have your own financial backing. I understand they say that money is the root of all evil. But honestly, family, money is the root of our emancipation and liberation. It's not what it is, it's how you use it. So it becomes important to me to encourage us to understand that we have to lift, we have to ascend our culture to a place that is financially stable. At the same time, I say to us who are doing this work, we must be honorable and responsible to our communities. To in them investing in us financially, we must take that those finances and invest in the community. And that's what I'm about. Because I have a number of things that I need to do The Underground Railroad is coming out in 8 days. Right now, I believe up until midnight tomorrow. And you see, another thing I know, you see, my son, Heru, came up with an idea that instead of calling it Black Friday, we're going to call it Black Hour Day. And I understand that. But like I say, I'm competing with everything. I'm competing with everything and everybody under all circumstances. And I know that we look forward to these days where we might spend some of our money. And so I want to have products out there that will meet the wishes of those who would like to take their finances and place it in something that will lift our people, that will lift our understanding. Because remember, when Dr. King was on his way to the ancestors, he was embarking on a poor people's campaign. That brother was about economic reparations. Make no mistake about it. His march on Washington was an economic thing. The civil thing had its place, but he was ready to do economics because he was talking about the whole idea of the I have a dream, as Michael Imhotep talks about it. When he was talking about that, that wasn't the original name of that speech. In fact, he had given that speech in Detroit months before. They just encouraged him to do that I have a dream part. That's why he went extemporaneous. He went off and did I have a dream. But he was talking about that check that was bounced by the promises of America. So it's important that we understand that we appreciate your support, your financial support. And I assure you, judge me by what I do. And my thing is to build a dynasty. And to do that, you need the financial support in order not to have to beg people for what you need. Okay? And it's important that as we look at this and you look at what's going on, that when you go to my website, www.kabakamene.com, there are things on there that are free. There are things on there like you can rent my DVDs for 99 cents. You can stream them for $2.99. I have the plus sign there in case you want to give more. But for those that are on that budget, that 99 cents is good, or that if making it free is good, that's fine with me. That's why I'm presenting it to you, because this information is very important, and I would never make money the object of the work that I do. It helps. It'll push me forward in the work that I'd like to do, and in working with other of the scholars that are out there that would like to do some work. But the Underground Railroad is a DVD I developed. It's going to be a series, and we started with our sister ancestor, Harriet Tubman. What would Harriet Tubman do? Looking at her character and her spirit of the 19th and 20th century, and looking at where we are in the 21st century, what would she do in the world that we're living in today? Not coming from where she was, but taking her and placing her being born in this generation. What would that spirit of Harriet Tubman do today as it relates to the important subjects of emancipation and liberation? So if you want to go on, it's at $1.29 right now until tomorrow, Monday. I believe it's the 27th of November, 12 midnight. After that, it's going to go back to its regular price, but you have a chance to pre-order it right now. And I can tell you that where we've premiered it, it has been really good reception. And I appreciate the work of my family, and I appreciate the work in particular of my son, who filmed it and who really was the director and the writer of a lot of this. So I'm really very happy. So that the Black Hour Day pack is only available, as I said, until tomorrow at 12 a.m. And that we've had support of this, and it will be going out. It'll be shipped out tomorrow. And so that it's important that we understand this, because we need the finances to do what we have to do. That's something that I've learned, and I am creating a business. It's called the Per Ankh, the Temple of Life, because we have to raise our standards up. We have to begin to develop an understanding of who we are as a people, and we have to compete. We're competing with the world out there, and we have to go after those that are ready to make this move, that are looking for this information. I'm just coming back from Moortown, Detroit, this weekend, where they premiered a movie called Black Friday that was conceived and produced by a brilliant brother by the name of Rick Mathis. and it was well received. There was a good attendance. The people were very receptive of it. And again, it's talking about the importance of economics and understanding this. The DVD Hapi that is out, it's very important because it talks about Hapi as a river, and it's important to the economic wealth of the people, because economics isn't money. Eco comes from the Greek word oikos, which means environment. And so economics is to know your environment and to be able to extract from your environment naturally those things that will build the technology. And that's what our ancestors did. And that's what we have to do. As you know, the DVD 1804 by the brilliant brother Tariq Nasheed and the Flex Entertainment organization is looking at the hidden history of Haiti. And one of the things that I focused in Detroit was the importance of understanding one thing, that the democratic socialist system that the people of Haiti developed after they were liberated is one of the finest economic programs that has ever existed in the modern world. In fact, it is the greatest economic. But you got to understand the difference between politics and economy. And when you don't understand that, you're going to get tripped up, because the communism and socialism that we're talking about today as it relates to Russia or China, that ain't what we're talking about. Socialism is social. Communism is community. It is where you can do things with your economy that relates back to building the government that represents the people. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the ideas of the politics is considered to be a democracy. The politics is communism. The economic system of a democracy is capitalism, and the economic system of communism is socialism. So you're dealing with a community that socializes. It has nothing to do with this Eurasian system. So please understand me. I'm coming to you from an African perspective, and I'm telling you one of the finest examples came from Africans in Haiti after the revolution in Haiti, where they decided that they had a government that would represent the people, but at the same time, there was the idea of capital, or the idea of being able to cooperatively compete in economics. It had nothing to do with the capitalism of the people that we know today, because basically, now that we're looking at it, what is the difference between the government of the United States and the government of Russia, the government of China? They're all the same thing. It's just that they hustle and they use different words for the same exact thing. So family, we're going to wrap this up. I ask you again to go to kabakamene.com. Give us your support, and we will give you our support. The Integral Railroad is right now $1.29. Go on there, because the numbers of people I see that come on this site to watch this, if each of you were to just go on the line and were to purchase that within the next 3 months, by African History Month of 2018, we'd have the type of backing that we could do some phenomenal things for our community. And so I ask you to consider that, because there's a lot of scholars out there that want to do this. And many of our ancestors who gave up their life, like William Leo Hansberry and Chancellor Williams and John G. Jackson and Dr. Ben, they died poor. And in being poor, they had no power in this civilization. They had great power with us. They had great personal power. But they ended up having to deal and depend on people that didn't necessarily mean them any good. I ain't going out like that. And I don't want you to go out like that. And I don't want our people to go out like that. In fact, we ain't going out at all. We're going to keep on keeping on, family, because it ain't over till we win. I'll see you next time, family. Hotep.